Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up a file that is, honestly, it's intimidating. We're looking at a massive world building project called Verseworld.
It really is. I mean, when you first sent this over, I opened the folder and just
Ooh.
saw the sheer volume of material. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And when I say massive, I don't just mean, the page count. I mean the conceptual weight of it. We are talking about corporate emails, secret history chronicles, diary entries from, doomed journalists.
I mean, a whole anthology of short stories that just completely fracture reality itself. It's a labyrinth.
It is. And what struck me is how it jumps between genres. One minute, you're reading a Michael Crichton-style techno thriller.
Totally. All about corporate espionage and lab-grown monsters.
And then you turn the page and you're suddenly in the middle of, a cosmic horror story about the multiverse. It's not just a story. It feels more like a simulation of a reality that went very, very wrong.
And right at the center of that simulation, that spinning hurricane, is one entity, Cantu Industries.
Exactly. And if you're looking for a hook, think of Cantu as the ultimate representation of the two faces of ambition. On one hand, they represent the absolute peak of human achievement. We're talking interstellar travel, curing diseases, literally mastering the genome.
But on the other hand, well, they represent the darkest depths of ethical negligence, and negligence might be putting it politely.
Oh, that feels generous.
It really does. We're talking about a corporation that basically views morality as a variable in an equation. And it's a variable that can be deleted if it messes up the profit margins.
So before we get into the whole timeline, I just want to set the scene for you listening right now. Picture a location. It's Laros Island, a remote fortress in the South Pacific. The coordinates are roughly 32 degrees south, 137 degrees west. It's completely isolated, surrounded by thousands of miles of ocean, and it is fortified to an insane degree.
We're talking cloaking devices, missile systems, the works. It's an isolated fortress of science. And that isolation is so crucial to the psychology of this whole thing.
Okay.
Well, it allowed Cantu's founder, Evan Jones, to operate completely without oversight. If you're in the middle of the city, you have regulations, you have watchdogs. If you're on a cloaked island in the Pacific,
You're God.
you are God. And that's where the mission for our deep dive today really begins. We are going to trace the timeline of this reality, starting with the creation of synthetic monsters on that very island.
Which I'm so excited to talk about.
Oh, I know you are. Then we're moving through a devastating interplanetary civil war, and this is the part that melted my brain a little, we're going to dive into the fractured stories of the multiverse that surrounds this main timeline.
Okay, I have to admit, I am a sucker for the creature feature aspect of this. I saw synthetic monsters in the notes, and I was just immediately on board. But I know you're more interested in the corporate side.
I am. Because the monsters are scary, sure.
Yeah.
But the corporate hubris that creates them, that's the real horror story here, is this clash between what they call DNA sculpting, which is essentially playing God, and the consequences of what they call the Ultverse, or infinite realities.
It's about what happens when you try to control systems that are fundamentally, uncontrollable.
Exactly.
So let's start at the beginning, or at least the beginning of the end for the normal world. We're looking at the year 2023. This is designated in the source material as the genesis of monsters.
Right. And to understand the monsters, you have to understand the technology first. DNA sculpting.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the term sculpting sounds so artistic, it sounds elegant.
It does. It's great marketing.
But looking at the schematics for the bioassembly line in the source documents, this looks more like industrial manufacturing. It's brutalist. They're treating nucleotides like they're concrete.
That's a great way to put it. Cantu Industries uses something called the digital genesis chamber. The source material describes it almost like 3D printing, but for life. They use a genetic design interface to visualize and manipulate genetic material in 3 dimensions.
Okay, hold on. Let's pause on that. Because if you're, say, splicing a gene, like we do in the real world with CRISPR, you're essentially editing a book that's already been written. You're changing a word here, a sentence there.
Correct. You're working with a template.
But if you're using a digital genesis chamber...
You're writing the book from scratch.
Yeah.
You're not using nature's template anymore. You are starting with a blank page.
So when they built these creatures, they didn't just take a lizard and add a wings gene. They coded a creature that should not exist in our evolutionary tree.
Precisely. And that distinction is vital. That's why the mimicry we're about to talk about is so terrifying. It's not an evolved survival trait. It's a programmed deception. They aren't just splicing. They are building new genomes from the ground up, layer by layer, using raw nucleotides.
But of course, there's a dirty little secret behind this miracle technology.
Of course there is. It wouldn't be a corporate thriller without some stolen intellectual property.
Yeah.
The tech was allegedly stolen from a rival company called Biosynth way back in 2005.
Yeah.
Now, Biosynth's goal was healing the genome, using this tech for medicine to fix genetic defects.
Yeah.
Noble stuff.
The kind of thing that wins you a Nobel Prize.
Exactly. But when Cantu acquired it, through a very hostile takeover, they shifted the goalpost entirely. They moved from healing to creating.
They wanted to make new life. Which brings us to Project Hyperspecies.
Yeah?
And the stars of our nightmare show.
The Raycon and the common monster.
Let's start with the common monster. The name is so bland, it implies it's, well, common, but the description is anything but.
No, it's a pure brute force bioweapon. It's described as dinosaur-like, with heavy scales, a whip-like tail that can crack bone, these big crests on its head, and it has these rattling quills for intimidation. Designed for one thing, aggression. It's a tank made of meat.
So it's the hammer, but the Raycon. The Raycon is the scalpel. This thing gave me chills reading the description. It's a dragon-like mimic. It has infrared vision, color-shifting camouflage, and a hooked stinger. But its most dangerous trait isn't physical, it's psychological.
It's the intelligence and the ability to mimic sound,
Right.
including human speech.
And that mimicry is just central to the Cantu incident. So the date is June 15th, 2023. We're on Laros Island. There's a massive storm raging outside, a classic setup.
It's a trope for a reason, and it works. The storm causes a power outage, the backup generators kick in, but there's a flicker, just a momentary lapse in the grid.
Just a second or two.
But that flicker's enough. The magnetic locks on the containment units disengage for that 1 second, and that's all it needs.
And this is where we get into the story from the files called The Night of the Storm. It focuses on a Dr. Helen Marsh. She's in the lab, the lights go out, the emergency red lights flare on, and she realizes the cage is empty.
And it's the sound design of that scene or the description of it in the text that's so effective. You have this high-tech facility plunging into darkness, just the sound of rain hammering the roof. And then the Raycon, which has escaped, it doesn't just attack, it uses psychology.
This part is just wild. There's a young guard outside the main lab door. He doesn't know what's happened yet. And he hears Dr. Marsh's voice coming through the intercom. He hears her say, "Open the door, please. I need to get out."
But Dr. Marsh is standing right there inside the lab, staring in horror with her mouth closed. It's not her.
It's the Raycon. It's mimicking her voice perfectly.
The detail that really got me was the sound of the voice. The source says it wasn't just a recording. The Raycon was modulating its vocal cords to match Dr. Marsh's distress pitch perfectly. But there was a tiny glitch,
The clicking sound.
a tiny wet clicking sound between the syllables. The sound of the creature's mandible shifting as it formed the words. The guard missed it. He was young, probably panicked.
And that mistake cost him his life. He overrides the lockdown, opens the door thinking he's saving a scientist, and instead, just absolute chaos. The Raycon kills him instantly with that hooked stinger. Dr. Marsh has to watch this happen through the reinforced glass.
And then the common monster gets involved too, the brute force.
Right, because its cage was open too.
Right.
There's a really gruesome detail in the incident logs where the common monster tears another scientist's arm off and just devours it. It's a total massacre. The sources call this the Cantu incident, and it's the moment the world changes, because these things don't just stay in the lab.
No, they escape the island. They get out into the world.
But the horror doesn't start with just being eaten, and this is where it gets even more disturbing for me. We have to talk about Alex Jones.
Not that Alex Jones, thankfully.
No, not that one. A journalist in this universe who is investigating these mysterious deaths that start popping up after the escape.
This is what the files call the body horror arc. It connects to 3 short stories: host, birth, and investigation. So Alex is tracking these creatures. He finds victims with their blood-drained, strange puncture wounds. He thinks he's hunting a predator.
But he's actually hunting a parasite. He has an encounter with the Raycon. He gets attacked, but he survives. He thinks he's lucky. He has this strange wound on his belly that heals up weirdly fast, but he feels wrong.
He feels something is off. He goes to doctors. They do scans. They can't find anything wrong with him. But the listener and Alex eventually starts to realize what's really happening. The Raycon doesn't just kill. It reproduces via oviposition.
It laid an egg in him.
It laid an egg in him. He isn't a survivor. He's a vessel. He's a walking incubator. The story Birth is the climax of this whole arc. It describes the sensation of something moving under his ribs. It's this terrifying, slow-burn realization that his journalistic curiosity, his drive to get the story, literally led to him becoming the story, or rather, the host for the next generation monsters.
That is just pure nightmare fuel. It taps into that primal fear of your own body being violated, of not having autonomy. So, okay, that's 2023. The monsters are out. The world is terrified. But here is where the deep dive takes a really interesting turn. Because usually in a monster movie, the credits roll after the monsters escape.
Right, that's the end.
But in Verseworld, history just keeps marching on.
It does. And Cantu Industries doesn't just fold up and go to jail, they double down. This leads us into the future timeline. We jump forward to 2058. Evan Jones, the founder, dies. And his death scene in the Chronicles is fascinating. He's an old man looking out at the ocean from Laros Island, the scene of the crime. And the source material gives us a look into his mind. He doesn't feel guilt about 2023.
None. He unleashed literal dragons on the world. How do you not feel guilty about that?
He didn't see it that way. He viewed the escape of the Raycon and the common monster not as a moral failure, but as a system bug. It was a glitch to be patched. In his mind, he died believing he was the savior of humanity because he also gave us spaceflight and advanced medicine. He thought the monsters were just the cost of doing business.
That dual legacy, that complete lack of self-awareness, it defines the next century. After Jones dies, the company splinters. We get the schism. And this feels very relevant to how we look at corporate power and, tech billionaires today.
It is. The company splits into two main factions. On Earth, you have the Earth branch, controlled by a guy named Maxwell Sterling. They control the bioweapons and the security. They are the old guard, obsessed with control, borders, and maintaining Earth's dominance.
And then you have the frontier.
Right. Mars in the asteroid belt. This is led by a woman named Eris Thorne. And here's where the class divide gets really stark. The people on Frontier aren't just workers. Many of them are starborn. They were genetically augmented humans designed to live in space.
So they're literally a different species almost.
In a way, yeah. They have different bone density, different oxygen requirements. They see themselves as the next step in human evolution, and they look down on the grounders back on Earth.
So you have Earth, which is old, crowded, and armed to the teeth. And you have the frontier, which is new, genetically superior, and controls the power switch.
Exactly. The frontier controls the Helios mirror, which is this massive solar energy collector that powers the whole solar system. They hold the leash.
That is a recipe for war. And war is exactly what happens. From 2108 to 2112, we get the interplanetary war. The frontier declares independence, and Earth, specifically Maxwell Sterling, reacts with just absolute brutality.
This brings us to the Sterling Sanction. And I want to pause here because this is probably the darkest moment in the entire timeline. We've had monsters eating people, but this is worse. This is bureaucratic evil.
It's evil on a spreadsheet.
It is.
Yeah.
Sterling decides that if the frontier won't submit, they don't deserve to exist. He deploys a custom-engineered virus called DV-01's the Death Virus on the Ceres colony.
And the mechanism of this virus is just horrifying. It doesn't just kill, it liquefies organic matter. But what's so striking is the description of the aftermath in the logs. There's no big battle. There's no explosion. Just silence. The Ceres colony just goes dark.
It's total loss of life. Millions of people. It's genocide, signed off on a corporate memo.
And the blowback from that is instant. You can't commit an atrocity like that and expect the other side to just, surrender?
No. It triggers the Great Collapse. The frontier retaliates by shutting down the Helios mirror. The interplanetary supply chain breaks. Earth starves. Mars goes dark. Humanity enters a new dark age because two corporate factions, two egos, couldn't share the sandbox.
But because this is a story about resilience as much as it is about hubris, we get a redemption arc. Enter Dr. Kaylin Reyes.
Kaylin Reyes is the anti-Jones. She's a baseline human, no augmentations, but she's a brilliant diplomat and scientist. In 2115, she goes to what's left of the UN and convinces them to let her restart Cantu Industries.
Wait, restart the company that literally caused the apocalypse? That seems like a hard sell.
Her argument was simple and honestly undeniable. The technology exists, you can't uninvent it. And only she knew how it all worked. If they wanted the lights back on, if they wanted space travel back, they needed Cantu. But this time, she wanted to run it right.
And she does.
She succeeds. She brokers a tripartite peace between Earth, the new frontier republic, and the reformed Cantu.
And this leads to the launch of the interstellar probes, right? The Jones and the Ray.
Yes. In the year 2200, a kind of symbolic end to that era, these probes carry the seeds of humanity, our DNA, our history, our culture out to the stars. It's the ultimate backup plan.
So that's the main timeline. It's a whole space opera. But Verseworld is, well, it's a multiverse, and the source material has this whole other section just called Stories that explores the altverse.
And this is where things get really weird. Because Verseworld isn't just about one timeline. It fully embraces the idea that every choice creates a divergence. And some of those divergences are unsettling.
We should probably mention the Ardome branch here, too, briefly.
Oh, right. Yeah. There's a whole secret branch of Cantu on a planet called Ardone, and they're partnered with aliens called the Thedrons. They're completely cut off from the Earth branch. They're studying the multiverse while everyone back in the Sol system is busy fighting civil wars. It just shows you how fractured this reality is.
Okay, let's dive into some of these anthology stories because they really flesh out the rules of this universe, and I want to make a connection here. In the first section, we talked about chaotic biology monsters that shouldn't exist. Now we're looking at chaotic reality timelines that shouldn't exist.
That's a perfect parallel. And the first story that really illustrates this chaos is The Wisher, which has the alternate title, I Wish You'd Scream.
This story really stuck with me. It's about a man named Caleb Dunn. He's just a nobody. Mundane, ignored, invisible. But he discovers he has this incredible power.
He can wish things away or into existence. And starts really small. He wishes a coin away. Then he wishes it back into his hand.
Simple stuff. But then there's a noisy neighbor.
Yeah. And one day he just thinks, I wish you'd be quiet. And she vanishes. Not just from her apartment, but from existence. And the escalation here is terrifying. Caleb stops speaking because he's afraid of his own accidental wishes. He realizes his subconscious desires are dangerous. The story calls him Will Unbound.
And the climax of the story is just horrific. He's in a public plaza and he just lets loose, causing chaos. The source describes people's hearts exploding, heads being replaced with springs, like a child playing with toys, but the toys are real human lives. It's reality warping at its most raw and awful.
But then comes the twist. A figure in an indestructible suit shows up.
And this is likely an explorer from a more advanced timeline, maybe a Cantu operative from another reality branch. He crosses over specifically to stop Caleb.
And you get this incredible battle between a man who is essentially a god, Caleb, and a man relying entirely on technology. The Wisher tries to unmake the explorer, to wish him out of existence. It creates this fascinating conflict between raw, chaotic reality warping and structured technological defense.
It reinforces that theme that technology is the only shield humanity has against the chaos of the universe, even if that technology is sometimes what causes the chaos in the first place.
A total paradox.
And that theme of structured defense against chaos leads us perfectly to the next story. Caesar and the Time Police.
This one is a classic what-if scenario. A traveler uses that same indestructible suit technology to go back to Rome, 44 BC. And his goal is to save Julius Caesar from assassination.
And the scene is written with such gravity. Caesar sees this man in futuristic armor appear out of nowhere, and he says, "Come down if you are to be my guardian spirit." It's incredible.
Right. So he saves Caesar. The assassins are stopped. History has changed. But when the traveler returns to his present, he finds two agents in black suits waiting for him in his apartment. They are from the Black Frame Group, or the BFG.
Not the big friendly giant.
Definitely not. The BFG is the Convergence Integrity Council. Their job is to monitor and prevent class null cascades.
Okay, that sounds incredibly technical. Let's break that down.
Yeah.
What is a class null cascade?
Think of the timeline as a load-bearing wall in a house. You can hang a picture on it that's a small change, like moving a coffee cup back in time.
Yeah.
This affects the structure. But if you try to knock out a foundational brick, like saving Julius Caesar,
The whole roof caves in.
exactly, that roof caving in is a class null cascade. It's total reality collapse. So the Black Frame Group aren't really cops. They're more like structural engineers for reality. They don't care about morality. They care that the house is about to collapse because you wanted to play hero.
Wow. And they have this rule, this protocol.
The Vance Protocol, it's named after a guy named Silas Vance. The backstory there is tragic. Vance was an agent who tried to save a dying universe. He tried to be a hero, and in doing so, he caused a cascade and got himself erased from existence. So the protocol is simple. Don't be a hero. Let the bad things happen. Let Caesar die. Let the wars happen. Because if you fix them, the structural integrity of the universe fails.
So the BFG agents tell this traveler, "We don't care that you saved Caesar. We care that you're using unlicensed tech that's going to collapse reality." It's so bureaucratic. It's chilling.
It is. It's the banality of it. They offer him a job or death. It's a study in control. Just like Evan Jones tried to control biology, The Black Frame Group tries to control causality.
Speaking of control, or the complete lack of it, we have to talk about the haunting. This story, which is just titled Laughter, feels completely different from all the high-tech sci-fi stuff. It's a straight-up ghost story.
It is. It's pure supernatural horror. It follows a woman named Jenna. She starts hearing laughter in her house when she's alone. Objects start moving on their own little glass globes rolling across the floor.
And the messages on the mirror, the classic, "I'm still here."
The tragedy of this story is in the ending. Jenna does what you're supposed to do in a horror movie. She gets out, she sells the house, she moves, she starts a new family. She thinks she's safe. She's escaped it.
But years later,
She's in her new house, a happy life. She gets out of the shower, wipes the steam off the mirror, and she sees the message again. I'm still here. The entity never left her. It just waited.
ugh, that's terrifying. What I love about including this story in the Verseworld files is that it implies this very personal, supernatural ghost story is happening in the same multiverse as the space wars and the dinosaur monsters.
Exactly. The source material actually has classifications for magical realities. It treats the supernatural as just another sector of physics that we don't understand yet. It unifies sci-fi and horror under one massive, chaotic umbrella.
Which brings us to the anomalies section of the files. We've got these things called reality rifts.
Yeah, apparently caused by a device called the quantum disruptor.
Yeah.
The sources have a whole list of major rifts on Earth. The Bermuda Triangle, the Devil Sea in Japan, even the Hoya Bashu Forest in Romania. These are described as literal tears in the fabric of reality.
So it connects our real-world folklore and mysteries to their science. And they classify universes, right? Like, our Earth is V7H3e.
Yes. And some are classified as Sector C, which means they have foreign biology or harsh environmental conditions. It's a way of cataloging the infinite, of trying to impose order on pure chaos.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on one hopeful story. Because we've had a lot of death, collapse, and existential dread. We need to talk about Stellar Engine.
This is such a beautiful counterpoint to the main timeline. A traveler finds a universe that, as the text says, dreamed big and didn't burn itself to ash. They find a civilization that is literally moving a star.
Moving a star? I mean, the scale of that is just hard to comprehend.
It's a Dyson sphere, but weaponized in a way. It's a stellar engine. Imagine a megastructure built around a sun, using its own energy to propel the entire solar system through the galaxy like a giant ship.
So why is this story important to the collection? Why include it?
Because it shows what humanity could be. In the main timeline, we used our energy to fight wars over resources. We used our genius to create monsters. In the Stellar Engine universe, humanity cooperated. It would take the entire species working together for centuries to build that engine. It contrasts so sharply with the main timeline's war and collapse. It's a glimpse of a good timeline, a road not taken.
So we've gone from the microscopic manipulation of DNA on Laros Island to the management of collapsing timelines by the Black Frame Group, and finally to moving entire stars. It is a massive scope.
It really is. It covers the full spectrum of human potential creation, destruction, and ultimately survival.
So what does this all mean when you step back and look at the whole tapestry? What's the big takeaway here?
For me, looking at Cantu Industries and the entire Verseworld project, it's a study in control versus chaos. Evan Jones thought he could engineer life. He thought he could patch biology like it was software. He was wrong. The Black Frame Group thinks they can police time and causality. But even they admit that entropy chaos is the only real constant. You can build the walls as high as you want, but eventually the storm gets in.
It feels like Cantu is both the ultimate villain and the ultimate hero of the story. They broke the world with the monsters and the virus, but they also fixed it with the second founding, and they exported humanity to the stars.
It's that dualism again.
Yeah.
You can't have the interstellar probes without the technology that built the monsters. They are, fruit from the same poisonous tree. And Brian is the root of both our greatest achievements and our worst atrocities.
That brings us to the final thought I want to leave our listeners with today. It comes from the afterword section of the source text.
The probes.
The probes. Jones and Reyes. They are drifting in the dark right now, carrying our DNA, our music, our entire history. And the text says, they are not tombstones, they are seeds.
It's a haunting line, because the seed grows.
It does, and it raises this really provocative question. If humanity sends its DNA and its history into the stars, and that history includes the blueprints for monsters like the Raycon and the memory of our genocidal wars, are we saving the galaxy? Or are we just infecting it?
If the Raycon is any indication, and if Cantu's history is any indication, we might be the most dangerous thing in the universe. We might be the invasive species.
A cheerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Verseworld. It's a wild ride through the best and worst of what we could become.
Always a pleasure.
Keep diving deep and watch out for the rifts. We'll see you next time.